Vision said that the Imre Chaim used to greet people a little bit differently, both Purim and Pesach. Generally on Purim we say Freilich and Purim. We greet people and we bench them, bless them, that they have a happy Purim. When it comes to Pesach, we say a kosher in Pesach. Ha kosher v'sameach. The Imre Chaim used to say a kosher in Purim and a freilich in Pesach. And he would explain. Because he said on Purim, generally everyone's happy. The question is, are you happy in a kosher way? So he would say a kosher in Purim. He said on Pesach, generally everyone's kosher. No one has, who has chametz in their house Pesach? But you got to be happy on Pesach. That's the tough one. He said the avoid of Purim is kashrus. The avoid of Pesach really is simcha. So he would vinch on people, he would bless them a kosher in Purim and a freilich in Pesach. For those of us that are here tonight, Bez Hashem Yisbarach, appreciate, I'm sure it's not an easy night to come. You all seem rather very relaxed. Borough Park this time of the year, somebody said he can't deal with Borough Park this time of the year. I said, why not? He said, there's no parking anywhere. And I said, what are you talking about? Wherever you drive, there's plenty of parking. Wherever you are, you park. I understand. I got to tell you that I cleaned out my car today. Actually, my kids did. Cleaning out your car is an experience. My car is kind of used to it. It's the 13th Pesach that it's being cleaned. Our mitzvah. We covered that. I gave it a brand new oil change and a tune-up. I think also it was very emotional because it was crying. There was oil leaking and antifreeze from all over the place. I tell you, when I don't know, it's kind of embarrassing when I clean out my car. It's the things you find. Sometimes I feel it's like, the treasures in the Titanic. It's just like amazing what's in the car that you for sure thought was lost. And you find it underneath the seats, between the seats. And then there's also the other part of it. They never really consider anything lost, because I say it's buried someplace in the car. And when the kids come in and they say we cleaned out the car and it's not there, then I know it's lost. So that's like always another thing you have to deal with on Pesach. I tell you, I tried many, many different ways of cleaning the car, including waiting online in the gas station, those long lines, and then, putting in those quarters into the big vacuums, those machines. That's not for me. The guy that I was driving by today, I think I mentioned this once before, and I saw that same sign. It's a big sign that says ATM, and right next to it, vacuum. And that's what I feel like. I feel like there's a vacuum on my ATM, Not much left before Pesach. So I don't know if you tried vacuuming your cars in one of those commercial vacuum cleaners, you know what it's like. See, first you stand in line 20 minutes to get quarters. Then you put in the quarter. And you think that you're going to have time to take the hose over to the car, apply it, and then press some buttons so that the vacuum cleaner goes on, and you could get most of your quarter time out. That's not the way it goes. So you put in the quarter, all of a sudden, boom, and you're like, no, where, right? And then if you have a car like mine, that the door doesn't always open, and you're going, oh no, and by the time you get the window open and the door open, you pull the latch, you get the seat back, and you're about to vacuum, pot. Quarters are over. So the other way of doing it, which I tried doing today, is doing it with the house vacuum cleaner in front of the car. Right? That doesn't cost a quarter. Problem is, you're never going to get a parking space in front of your house when you have to vacuum out your car. So I wind up parking like on the corner. So I need this like extra really long extension wire, that goes like all the way down my block. And also, like the kids start emptying everything out of the car, and everyone's wondering like what all that came out of this car. I feel like it says by the Mitzoyra, it says that when the goyim on a house, they emptied out his whole house, Finu Esabayas, and that was an Oynish. You said you don't have that, right? Look at this. As I felt like, the whole block is commenting. So, Kitzur Maisa, Pesach is not easy. I don't know. I went into one of the banks in Borough Park. I'm serious. This big sign, ATM is out of cash. Really, Then to add insult to injury, it says, please feel free to, use it for all other transactions. What other transactions before Pesach, Withdrawal charoises. We're coming here for it. The ATM is out of cash, Why can't I say that? I'll tell you this before. I once saw one of those signs. The ATM says deposits only, no withdrawals. I wanted to take that sign and put it on my front door, but it doesn't work that way. Square Rebbe Chaim Levracha said once about a simcha, that a simcha is like a business. You invest, it costs money, you take out money, put in money, you take out money, and the ikar is so bleiben rebach. You should be left with some type of a profit. But no one ever expects to go into a business without putting money in. Unless it's some kind of a Ponzi scheme. But if it's a real business, you're going to invest, and you hope to take out more than you invest. So the Rebbe said that a simcha is the same way, and I guess it applies to a Yom Tov as well. No one ever, the Yom Tovim were never designed to be, you don't have to invest in it. You have to invest in the Yom Tov. And the hope is that you're left with a profit. So bleiben revach. Rabbi Isaac Meislonim was an extremely, was a Louis Shakop, and and once they came to him and they told him about Beryl, they said, what's with Beryl? They said, Beryl used to be rich, and now he doesn't have any money. And Beryl is embarrassed to admit that he lost everything. And you should know, Rabbi, we know for a fact that there isn't a morsel of food in Beryl's house coming into Pesach. So the Rebbe said, why doesn't he go to the Moaschiten Fund and to the Kimcha de Pescha and all of the organizations that give? He says, because when we try, he says, what, me? He's too proud. And we feel that because of the proudness, he's going to die, literally, of hunger. So the Rebbe said, I'll take care of it. And everyone came to say Git Yom Tiv to the Rebbe the night of the Seder. And they lined up, and as Beryl came by, so everyone nods, Git Yom Tiv Rebbe, Git Yom Tiv Rebbe. And he comes by, Yom Tiv, and he goes, what? Come here. And what do you want from me? And the Rebbe, what? Like, shh, loud. Whisper in my ear. No one knows what's going on. The Rebbe's talking something to Beryl. What's he talking about? I don't know, something about Yom Tov. I don't know what it is. And like he leans, doesn't know what the Rebbe wants. And he goes, Get Yom Tov. He goes, say it again. What's with you? Get Yom Tov. Find the Rebbe thinks for a minute and he goes, that's what happened? That's what happened? The Chometz fell. Everything is treif. All your kelim are treif. Your matzahs are treif. You can't use a thing in your house. And everyone's like, you heard what happened? Beryl asked the Rav a Shaila, and it turns out that whatever the Shaila was, I couldn't hear Chlor, but everything is treif. He has no food. Don't worry, I have extra matzahs, I have extra potatoes, I have extra this, I have extra charaisis, I have extra applesauce. So everybody came running and brought him food. And he got a derech cover, because it wasn't that he didn't have money, it was just that he didn't have, everything became treif at the last minute. What can you do? That wasn't Al Rachmanis. So he saved face. So in every story there's always a deeper message. And I guess at the point before Pesach that we're willing to admit, I have nothing. I need you, Rabbi Shalom. At this point in my life, you look back at the year, you look back from last Pesach to this Pesach, how many dreams did you have that never came to fruition? How many problems that you hope are going to be solved and it never happened? And whether it's related to family or business or your avodas Hashem, you think from last Pesach to this Pesach, I'm at square one. Where am I? And you get to the point, you say, I blew it. At the point you're willing to say that, and you're willing to admit that, and the Rebbe Shalom says, no problem. That's all I need you to say. Then it's not going to get Yom Tov, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu sends it in from all over. Miyoid have a shefal ruach. Should be try very, very hard. Just break your ruach. Admit, Rabbi Shalom, I need you. And corresponding to that, it says, Toiva Eretz mi'oid mi'oid. The person is zeicha to the beauty of Eretz Yisrael. Tomorrow night, we're going to be doing B'dikas Chametz. In 24 hours from now, most of us will be after B'dikas Chametz, depending on what type of B'dikas Chametz you do. But L'maisa, it's the only mitzvah that basically we go through all of our assets. Here, we take this candle, and we go through every single thing that we own. So, in a way, and the Svarim say this, it's a hechatimsa that the Rebbe Shalom wants us to take an inventory of everything we have. You see? Take it easy. This is what I have. Are you thankful for what you have? I remember I went to sell chametz by the Debbetzina Rav. The old time Rav, before Pesach you can tell the whole, and he's there and there's a phone call and I see the Rav is like almost has a tear in his eye and he says, a yid in his hospital room, he said, he's there all Pesach, he wants to know if there's a chiyuv b'dikas chametz in the room. Could he do b'dikas chametz in the room? It's like, Amcha Yisrael, right? The mamish, there was a tear in his eye. So, it's a hard thing to do b'dikas chametz. Over the beds, under the beds, which is not a very good idea, by the way, to use your candle under the mattress. Because then you'll have a much easier b'dikas chametz, because there won't be anything left to be bidek. It's a good idea to use a flashlight over there, which most places can say you're yaitzu with anyhow. It's more pikabala that we use the candle. But the idea is the Gemara puts an emphasis on b'dikas chametz. Ner Hashem nishmas adam. B'dikas chametz is the mitzvah where we take an accounting of whatever we have. It's the Rabbi Hashem says, stop, I want you to look at who you are. Exactly what you have. And there's no other mitzvah like that. I mean, there's air and a dachas, so you burn everything. But is there any other mitzvah where we're obligated to take an accounting of everything we own? And that's because the beauty of Pesach is that we have an opportunity, not necessarily to change things, as we've discussed in previous weeks, but to take our very essence, to take our very metzius, and to say, this is who I am, this is what I own, whether it's 10 buildings, 5 buildings, 1 building, or a measly apartment, or a dorm room, this is my gift, and with this I serve Hashem. And when you're willing to acknowledge that, then the Rabbeinu Shalom is mamshech and imbues within us a sense of blessing that is not available throughout the rest of the year. The Chidah, the Ridvaz, many point out that the whole Indian of Chametz is also b'mashu. There's no other thing like that. Everything, bottle b'shishev, even by Truma, by Arla, whatever. There's higher numbers that it becomes bottle. Certain things are bottle in 100, 200. But the idea that something is b'mashu is almost non-existent. And he says, even though, the Radvaz says, even though with all other things, there's pshat, remes, drush, side, when it comes to chametz, you have to come on to the side. You have to come on to the secret. The Beis Halevi once came in and his wife was rubbing the wall, rubbing. He says to her, and you rub one more time, there won't be a wall. And she turns around and he says, if you men would do chametz, we would have to be full of bagels all over the house. There's a certain inyan, there's a kayach in the kedusha of Klal Yisrael that somehow we understand. That we have to get into our very metzias. That actually, it's brought down in the Svarim, that on Pesach there's a tikkun, the Maral touches on this. We know that there's 4 things. There's doimim, chai, tzomeach, and medaber. Doimim means like a table. It's doimim. There's tzomeach, plant life. There's chai, and there's medaber, and there's the person that talks. The Pesach has a kiddush, it has an effect on everything. Everything changes on Pesach. It's brand new. That's why the chodesh, the new tfuah, is mutter. Come Pesach. The Maral says, it's a new world, it's a new metzias. Everything you own is new. There's a new lease of life on it. And it takes a tremendous amount of amunah. It's a greater darga than on Tishrei. On Tishrei, it's called as a noise of shaladim kitzufim like Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah. On Tishrei, it's decided whether you have the table, you don't have the table. On Pesach, it's a new pchina. I have the table, but now it's a new table. It's my life changes around this table. And the Zman has a hashpar. Tzaddik talks about this, that whatever you own on Pesach becomes something else. I once said this to someone, he told me it's true, even a doimein, even something that is not alive, knows that it's Pesach. He says, I can prove it. I said, how do you prove it? He says, every year, Erev Pesach, either my oven or my fridge or my dryer goes. He says, how does it know that it's Pesach? It's a siman, that even a doimein, that even a refrigerator knows that it's Pesach. Also, in the blech is parnas uzu mizu, that everyone has to make parnasa. I was once trying to get someone over to my house to fix a refrigerator before Pesach, and he said, his wife said that my husband's very busy before Pesach. Well, he's supposed to be busy fixing refrigerators, so get him over here. He says, no, he doesn't really fix on Pesach, before Pesach. So what does he do? He says, well, he wanders up and down the streets to where people throw out their refrigerators and washing machines, and he collects the spare parts. I said, that's why I'm not going to have a refrigerator? I said, there's a remez in everything. Maybe Pesach is the time to collect the spare parts. There's it says, the Gemara says, and a very interesting story in Schachter's Psachim. Gemara says that one of the Amiroim got up and he darshan, for a matzah, you need mayim shalonu. So of course, what does mayim shalonu mean? Water that spent the night in the earth. Meaning to say you have to draw the water from matzah, the night before. Because you don't want it in the heat overnight because the temperature of the water is hot or whatever the different reasons there are for mayim shalanu. But the people in this town, I guess they weren't so learned, and they heard the Rav give a drasha. He said they need mayim shalanu, so they touched, what does shalanu mean? Shalanu means our water. So they said, you only yotze matzah with the Rebbe's water. So he comes out and he sees a long line in front of his house, and everyone's standing there with buckets. He says, what's this? He says, you said you only yotze with your water. So we want your water. He said, I didn't say Mayim Shalanu, our water. He said Mayim Shalanu, water that's been denied. Okay, so why does the Gemara tell us this story? The Gemara telling us the Amaratzis of this city, that they mixed up Shalanu and Shalanu. So the Avnei Nezer says it wants to show us the tmimus of those people. I mean, you imagine today some Rav will get up and say, you're only yotze with my water. Everyone would say, that ganef, that, this, that, whoa, my water, you know. When they say, aser b'shul shetis asher, you know, aser something, say it's aser, it's like, I'll only buy my product, you know, you're not going to ever get away with that. Look at the tmimus, you know, the Rav said, my water. Okay, we're buying your water. And we're buying your water. But be'emes, there's a word from the Sadegera, he takes it a step further. He says, Rosh Hashanah time, we go tashlach. What do we do with tashlach? We take our aveiros and cast it into the water. He says, what do we do on Pesach? We draw up the water. We take back our aveiros. We say, listen to Rabbi Shalom, this is who I am, okay? This is my person, this is what I own, these are my taivas, these are my battles, these are my challenges, these are the events in my life. He says Pesach is the opposite of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah we throw our aveiros in. Is Pesach we take our aveiros and we deal with them. And then in a similar vein, the Kedushas Levi says, the Gemara says, how do you keep the kids up? You distribute nuts to them. Kloyas v'agoyz. Which comes to tell you how different children were in those days. Imagine getting a kid excited today about nuts, you know. Gemara doesn't say you give out PlayStations or the new discs. Okay, so you give out nuts. So the Berditchev points out again, Rosh Hashanah, we don't eat nuts. Right? Why don't we eat nuts in Rosh Hashanah? Because the phlegm. Another time is because egois, which means the nut is gematria chet, so we don't eat it in Rosh Hashanah. The Katzka said people are worried about the gematria of chet, they're not worried about chet itself, but okay. He says, on Pesach, we bedafka eat nuts. Because with tshuva me'ahava, a person does tshuva out of love, his aveiros turn into mitzvahs. Now, Reb Tzaddik says, how is this that you do tshuva me'ahava, you do tshuva out of love, your aveiros turn into mitzvahs? So he says a very deep part, it has to be understood, and it can't be misunderstood, but I don't like to shy away from things that need thought, so let's explain what Reb Tzaddik says. He said, look, nothing happens in this world unless God wanted it to happen. Okay? Now, if somebody sitting over here ate something not kosher, no doubt he's going to, right? He's punished for that. Rabbi Hashem works on his own timetable. But was it the Ratzon Hashem that should be eaten? Now here we have to split the hair. It was not the Ratzon Hashem that he should eat it. The Rabbi Hashem told him not to eat it. But in reality, God allowed it to happen. If he really didn't want it to happen, it would have not happened. That does not mean that the person is not accountable for what he did. That's not what he's saying. You know, the guy said he's about to die. He tells the Chevra Kedisha they should give him a ham sandwich. They said, why? He says, they're going to hit me and hit me and hit me. I'll never know when the end is. At least this way I'll know when they get to the ham sandwich is the last thing. He says, I don't know. Reb Tzaddik is not saying a person is not punished for his aveiros. What Reb Tzaddik is saying is that l'maisa, if you don't think you outsmarted God, he did the aveira. Because the reality is that if God didn't want the aveira to be done, it wouldn't have been done. And if the aveira was done, if it happened, so in some degree, within a certain context, that was the Ratzon Hashem. If not, it wouldn't have happened. Now, if a person does tshuva out of love, he really does tshuva me'ahava, so what happens? So the aveira is no longer an aveira. L'maisa, what did he do then? So what he did was he was a vehicle to fulfill the Ratzon Hashem. It's the very teeth of art. In other words, now you can't l'chatchila go say echta v'ashiv. Well, I'm going to do this great service for God, and I'm going to go to some who knows what theater at night, and have some tray for the steak. All Shem Shaddai. That does not work. Echta v'ashiv ain't the speaking b'yadi las shuva. But in retrospect, after a person was nichshel, even in the worst aveira, l'maisa, if he truly does tshuva me'ahav, and tshuva me'ahav is not an easy madrega, but if he truly repents out of love, so you erase the aveira, so what's left? The fact that you did the maisa, which fulfilled the Ratzon Hashem. So Pesach is a pchina of tshuva me'ahav. That's why on Rosh Hashanah, which is tshuva me'ira, we throw the aveira into the water. On Pesach, we draw the water up. On Rosh Hashanah, we stay away from the nuts. On Pesach, we distribute nuts. Because we're not running away from our aveiros. We're assessing our aveiros. We're saying to the Bible, this is who I am. Help me do tshuva. And that's the union of Maschul Begnus Umesayim B'Shvach. That we bedavka start the Agada with this very unlofty kind of a thing. Guess what? My heilige grandfather was an Oived Avodah Zarah. Oh, nice. Because the whole Pchina of Pesach is I'm not running away from who I am. These were my breakthroughs in life. These were my tithas. These were my mistakes. Rabbi Shalom, I want to come to terms with it. I want to deal with it. And the Rabbi Shalom says you're willing to deal with it, then you as a person, you and your nisyonis, you and your challenges, you and all the things that you've given up will become part of your Yeshua. Maschul begnus or Messiah b'shvach. The Messiah b'shvach is based on the recognition of the gnus. And we discussed in Shabbos that when the Yidden were, by the Yansef, and there was a whole tumult, should they be saved? Should they not be saved? So the Mount Makatrik, the prosecuting angel, tying that Alalu wife the Avodah Zarah, Alalu wife the Avodah Zarah. The Egyptians said so to the Jews. And what was the answer? And the answer is that the Yidden were willing to recognize, yes, we were wife the Avodah Zarah. So what do I do now? Yes, I have my Sveikus and Amunah. Yes, I saw things I shouldn't have said. Yes, I messed up my life. Yes, another Pesach is almost there, and boom, would I blow it this year? So what do I do, Hashem? So Kosh Baruch Hu says, that kind of Avodah Zarah I'm ready to help. If he's ready to acknowledge, I am ready to help him. So, the Gemara says that you're sitting by the Seder, Mesechtes Pesachim Navkuf Tezayin, says the Baraisa, what do? If your son is a Chacham, if he passes the IQ test, B'noi Shoyallah, his son asks him, the Manishtana. Okay? Havim Einai Chacham, you're waiting over there, the son. Notice I'm doing things different? It's different the whole year. He's not asking anything. Okay, so what do? He turns to his wife. Ishtai Shayalai. His wife asks him the ma nishtan. Now, the imlav, suppose his wife doesn't get it either. So who Shayalai Atzma? He asks himself the ma nishtan. Not only that, the Filushnei Talmidei Chacham. Shayoidin b'Hilchas Pesach. They know Hilchas Pesach backwards and forwards. They know every Mishnah Berurah, every Magen Avraham, every Taz. They know the Makar Chaim. They know everything. Shayal and Zelazeh. So they ask each other, why are you doing this? Okay? So the Arizal says that a question is a keli to bring down Hashras Hashchim. The Pesach is essentially a Serusa de Laila. Even though we don't deserve it, God sends us down Hashpah. But you have to take note of it. Why? Why do I feel different? You have to recognize the difference in order, that's your key to get into the Hashpah. But let's go back to this Gemara. And let me ask you some basic, very elementary, as they call Balabatisha questions. If the kid is a Chacham, so he says, Matzah. Why Matzah? Leaning. Why leaning? All these Gevalige Shilas. I want to ask you something. Are we talking about a kid that was in a coma till now, and he had no Pesach till now? Is this his first Pesach? Are we talking about a kid that was captured by the Taliban, and he never saw a Seder, and we just got him redeemed, and he goes, what's this, Matzah? I mean, who is the kid? The Gemara makes it sound, the Pashtak, every Mora from after Purim starts playing the CD, the Manashdana tape. Come on. But in its initial form, it's supposed to be a spontaneous question. We're not supposed to drill the question. So the kid is supposed to be surprised. Really, what are you doing? So when is he surprised? The first Pesach, he's surprised. So how old is this kid that's like, that we're gearing it, we want him to say, what's this? Why are things different? Why doesn't he remember from last year? Okay? Now, let me ask you a second question. It says that if the son is a Chacham, the Chacham asks him Anashtana. And it said if his son is not a Chacham, what does it say afterwards? His wife asks him the Manashtana. How come it doesn't say if his wife is a Chacham, she asks him the Manashtana? How come by the son he only asks the Manashtana if he's a Chacham? But by the wife, there's no such distinction. It sounds like whether she's a Chachemista or not, she asks the Manashtana anyway. Okay? And then we go weiter, it says, okay, his son doesn't ask, his wife doesn't ask, so what does he do? Shoyal Yatzma. He talks to himself, yeah? Gemara says, talk to yourself. A guy came to a doctor, he says, what do? I talk to myself the whole day. He says, so, why do you do that? He says, I have to speak to someone intelligent. He says, I tell you this many times, I was like in Shem Shabbos downstairs, they have interesting people there sometimes. Chas v'shalom, I'm not judging anyone, but this guy was late at night, Mariv, and he was sitting there between the cookies and the cakes, and he was talking to himself like it was a real debate, going on, and I just, in fascination, I was listening, and he says, and he looks at me and says, you have no right to listen to me talk to myself. Not your concern. Sorry. And the guy comes to a person, he says, I talk to myself all day. He says, so what's the problem? He says, you don't know what a nudge I am. He says, I can't take it. He says, I'm such a nudnik. I says, I can't take it. Okay, shoyali atzim. So you're asking yourself. What does that mean, you ask yourself? On top of that, you have two Talmidei Chachamim that know all of Hilchos Pesach. Shoylim Zelazel. They know all of Hilchos Pesach. What are they asking? Trying to catch each other. I know all of Hilchos Pesach. Tell me, what's the din if you didn't drink the second kais for the seifa? Well, I think, you missed the chance. See it? Oh, that's the Mishra Prima Gun doesn't hold that way. They know each other. Why are they asking? Trying to catch each other? Why are they doing that? One beer I heard is as follows. I once went to visit Yid in a nursing home. And I don't know why he kept talking about his age. And if you would know how old I am, he said. So I knew it's not nice to ask someone how old you are. But Hayos, he kind of led me up to it. So I said, Salang Yarin, how old are you? So he tells me, Ich habe gegessen 80 Afikoinens. Said I ate 80 Afikoinens. So it was the way he expressed his age was by the amount of Afikoinens that he ate. And I thought to myself, and I think we've mentioned this beforehand, it's a powerful thought. Because I'm sure none of those 80 Afikoinens was the same. If we think about how life changes, how from year to year our life changes. And think about last Pesach to this Pesach. How many expectations did you have that didn't turn out? How many things changed in your life? None of us knows. And none of us knows what's coming from this Pesach to the next Pesach. When the Rabbi Shalom send Rachman to everyone. But last Pesach was not the same as this Pesach. The body and the neshama that consumed the matzah last year is not the same body that's consuming it this year. So if the Rabbi Shalom Rachman gave us 80 afikoimens or 90 afikoimens, 120 afikoimens, it's not 120 afikoimens. It's 120 times one afikoimen. Who we are this year is not who we were last year, and it's not who we are next year. Rabbi Yochanan used to stand up for an old man, a Gentile old man. They said, he's not Jewish. So what if he's not Jewish? What about the respect for humanity? He said, Kama Kafti, or how many experiences did this person go through to get to that age? I'm standing up for a human being. I'm standing up for the human experience. What we're trying to get the kid to ask Manashtan. And what is the kid really asking? What is the kid really asking? It's confusing. The old bad joke that this guy comes, he's being knighted by the queen, and he gets on his knees, and they put the sword on his head, and everyone says something in Latin. And I don't know, Chaim Yankelep had the right protection. He's getting knighted, and he gets down on his thing, and he's wearing the knight's clothes, and they put the sword on his head, and he's supposed to say the Latin prayer. He has no idea what the Latin prayer is. So he goes, say something. He goes, Manishtana Laila Zemikala Lailas. He walks away, and then the queen says, what did he say? He says in Hebrew. She says, what did he say? He says, she looks at it, he said, why is this night different? How does it go? The queen said, why is this night different than all the other nights? Like, what's with him? I blew that joke. All right.
No, you didn't.
You can't stumble there by the thing. Okay. So, in other words, the real meaning of Madishtan, I think it's a tief of art, is I'm sitting down by the Seder, and I'm all excited. It's the Seder night! It's Pesach! We're going, me'avdis lechayris! My life is going to change! So the smart kid says, didn't change till now. Why do you think it's going to change now? It's the Seder night! My relationship with God is going to be different. What do you think is going to happen now? It's going to be different. You're still going to wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning. What's going to be different? I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to rise up from all the things that kept me, in depression and the sadness. A new leaf. Why a new leaf? What happened? Nothing changed. All the problems you still have. Now the kid may have asked that one year. But if the father is doing the Seder night, he sees a new emotion in the sense of the father. He sees that the father is more excited now than he ever was. And the kid, it's a new question every year. Why this year? I never saw you so excited. I never saw you so full of hope that this Pesach is going to change your life. Why? What happened? So we have to create an environment where the kid asks the question. There's that famous story, I'm sure many of you heard it. They say Lord Jacobowitz, he was the chief rabbi of England, so when he was being trained in to be the rabbi, So there was another rabbi before him, and they were going to Prince Edward, I don't know, Prince something, I don't know, whatever it was, and the Queen. They were standing on a stage, and they were giving like the royal nod. Everybody would go through. So he said, you're going to come, I'm going to teach you how you eat by a royal meal. The old rabbis training the new rabbi. The new rabbi is El Chiyid. He said, I got to eat by the meal. I should eat there? He says, yeah. Takes him to Buckingham Palace. There's a kosher kitchen. They knock on the door. There's a mashgiach over there. Yeah, I'm the mashgiach. Shows him everything is tachlis, ahidr, kashrus, everything perfect. Fine. So they sit down to this meal. All the ambassadors of different countries, and they bring out this most expensive china. He goes, I thought that's paper plates. I can't eat this. China's paper plate. Shh. Picks up the plate. He shows them on the other side. There's a little mark. Shows you this is a kosher plate. So they should make it a different color. It can't be a different color. It's the king's thing. It's the most expensive china in the world. And he's sitting there, okay, and he's like a little hesitant. And all of a sudden they come out, because the queen and the prince come out. They set up the stage. And the band starts playing, and everybody goes by. And meanwhile, they're pushing all the tables off to the side. So he sees his plate's getting mixed up with all the other plates. So this Rav, he grabs the plate. And all of a sudden, they moved away all the tables, and he's holding his plate. And the older rabbi that's like tutoring him, what did you do? What are you holding a plate for? It's going to get mixed up with the other plate. What are you talking about? You're like a fool. You're standing holding a plate. He goes, I'm going to go over. I told you it has a seminar. So I'm going to go over to the ambassador of Iran. Excuse me, this is your plate? Oops, sorry, I spilled all the stuff. Don't blow up the world. I'm sorry, you know. I don't have a plate. I just grabbed my plate. Put it down. I'm going to put it down. And all of a sudden, before you know it, they're online for the royal nod. You know, playing the music, and the prince is standing on by. And he's coming by, and he's holding his plate. And what are you doing? What are you doing? Finally, they pass by, and the prince says, he stops the line. He goes, excuse me, why are you holding a plate? He goes, Your Majesty, I eat kosher. He says, why are you holding a plate? He said, I thought it would get mixed up with the other plates, so I grabbed it. He goes, aren't you embarrassed? Look what you did. I can't believe this. Aren't you embarrassed holding a plate? He says, honestly, I'm committed to my values. I don't think whether I'm embarrassed or not. It was like a knee-jerk reaction. I just grabbed what I think is important to me. But it's just the food is kosher, you know, the ones that you're going to get. But there's absorptions. Kosher isn't just, kosher. It's your whole environment. Just like over here, it's not just standing next to the king. There's a certain majestic, celestial, kingly kind of a thing that gets absorbed into your very essence. That's represented by the plate. So he goes, I like this chap. He says, so he tells one of those two guys, with the red bekishes and the spadik, says, pick him up. I'd like to talk to him. They lift him up, and the prince starts schmoozing with this new Rav. The other Rav that was like tutoring him was like a shtickle, I'm a stepchild, he's my chopped liver. He's like trying to get the prince's, hello. So finally the prince sees him. He goes, what's the problem? He goes, I'm also an Orthodox rabbi. He says, you are? Where's your plate? Where are you? It doesn't mean we're coming into the Seder, everything is hunky-dory. Coming into the Seder, we have a lot of problems. And that's why it's maschul begenus v'sayim b'shvach. We're saying, yeah, you have problems. And when the Yidden came out of Mitzrayim, they had problems. Relatively speaking, of course, it was a Dardeya. And your Yeshua comes by acknowledging, this is who I am. These are my mistakes. This is who I am, Rabbi Shalom. Help me. And maybe that's why we lift the plate. Maybe that's the Inyan. This is who I am. And we lift it. And I want to go weiter. So the Inyan is that the son should chapes spilus. Should chapes spilus. Yeah, we mentioned this by Shalashudis, the story. Sadager Rebbe, they once saw him in Eretz Yisrael. He was sweeping the streets early in the morning. They thought, the Rebbe, no, holding a broom. They ran. Rebbe, is everything all right? Yeah? You're holding a broom. I know. Rebbe, you're like sweeping the street? Yeah, I know. Why? He said, I tell you, told him a story. When the Nazis came into Sadager, they took the Rebbe out in front of all the Chassidim. They gave him a broom. And in order to humiliate him and to break the spirit of the people, they told him to sweep the streets. So he said, as I was sweeping the street, I made a Kabbalah. I said, Rabbi Shalom, if I ever get to Eretz Yisrael alive, als the Chavivas of Eretz Yisrael, I'm going to sweep the streets. So they asked the Rebbe, maybe you don't do it publicly, could build a mechitza around, people might get the wrong idea if you're going to do it. So like we said by Shalashudis, heard another chelik to the story. Then when the Germans, at gunpoint, gave him the broom, and they told him to sweep the streets. So he said like this, he said, Rabbi Shalom, he says, all people are yours. The Germans are yours also. And this broom is your broom. And this street is your street. So, Rebbeinu Shalom, if you told your people that I should clean your street with your broom, then that's what I have to do. And I'm doing it as I'm doing your will. I think that may be the reason he was zeicher to do it in Eretz Yisrael. If we acknowledge that the problems in my life, the fears, the dangers, the insurmountable challenges, or the difficulties of things past that don't seem to have solutions, whether it's pre-trauma or post-trauma, this is my metzias. I don't understand it, but I know it's all you. Once we say that, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us that kiss, so to speak, that Anibal Malach and HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down and lifts us and says, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim is a double bracha. Haba, it's an ongoing process. The process of geula in your heart starts at this moment. The Chedushei Arim once hired a wagon driver to get them to Kutsk in time for Shabbos. And this wheel broke, and that wheel broke, and they didn't look like they were going to get to Kutsk in time for Shabbos. So they told the wagon driver, move it, and another 20, 30 wagon drivers were whipping the horses, boom, 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 and get there. And finally they make it right before this man, boom. And the horses are so exhausted that they just keel over and gone. You're outside of the horse. And the wagon driver was so distressed, his whole parnasa. So they told him, don't worry, we'll get you a new horse, don't worry about it. But he couldn't deal with it, and he passed away over Shabbos. Never died. So Chedushei Arim said they wanted to be mispalel for him. They wanted to help this person. They wanted to help him. So he says in Shemayim, he came up. He says he didn't have a very good, he had a pretty bad rap sheet. You know, he was a balagola, spoke coarsely, called me David, this whole David learning and cursing, and then what they do with him? Lamaisa, he died through a serious nefesh for Shabbos. So they said to him, what do you want? What should we give you in Gan Eden? You're going to sit there with all the Talmidei Chachamim? What's your dream? What's your He says his dream is to be on a beautiful road, 2 strong horses, and to drive them, and a road going downhill. So they gave him a horse and a wagon, and they gave him a road that perpetually goes downhill. And he's like, the happiest guy in the world. Grand Prix. He's so excited. Oh, this is like, great. It's going downhill. No end to the down of the hill. So the Chedushei Arim said, they had Rachmanis on him. Said they were mispalel to get him out of that world. And they should have this tikkun. He should be in a world that's real. Now the emes is, I've heard this B'Shem Reb Heschel, a speaker, Zachron Levracha. He said, every year we say, this Pesach we're going to change our lives. It doesn't change your life. Your life doesn't change. It stays the same. So why am I trying? Why am I even thinking? Why do I even think, this Pesach is going to be different? From here on, it's not going to be different. It hasn't been different till now. And even if during the Seder, I reach a moment of, really feel close to Hashem. So you know what's going to happen the first time you spill the wine, and the first time someone screams or yells at you, or someone crashes, or your mother-in-law says something out of whack, but it's Seder, boom, the whole thing goes out the window, right? So what's the point? It happens every year. In Olam Haba, when we get to Olam Haba, he explained, they're going to ask us, so where do you want to be? And we will only be able to ask for the highest point that we had down here in this world. So the closest moment you had with Hashem down here in this world is what you can ask for in Olam Haba. If you have nothing more happy than riding the horse down the hill, that's all you have. So down here in this world, even if for a fleeting second, you feel like, okay, I have betachin, Hashem, whatever Hashem does is good, is going to carry me through this. Even if you lose it the next second. But the point is, you got to that point. You touched it. And if you touched it even for a second, that means in Olam Haba you'll be zoicha to that madrega. You'll be zoicha to that level. There's a famous story that Stefan Eshter, one of the original rabbis, he came in, he heard 2 Hasidim learning. One of them said the Gemara that if you save one person, it's as if you save an entire world. You go into Olam Haba just for saving a human life. So he went over to him and said, "Abanishma kabacha," not with a whip. What? He asked the Rebbe, what do you mean? So he said, to make a long story short, there was this guy, this wagon driver is always the brunt of everything in Europe. But there was this guy, this wagon driver, he was a big flaming red beard. He was as mean as it comes. Looked like the Malach HaMothers himself, and he would smash through towns, and he was terrible. His wife was petrified of him, his kids, the people in town. And then once, to make a long story short, he came and he saw a family drowning and in the mud, and their horse slipped over, and it was the middle of the night, and he was scared to stop. But he stopped, and he jumped in, and he rescued them one by one. And when he came up to Shemayim, so they put the mud onto, they put all the mud and everything that he jumped into onto the scale, and it evened out all of the mitzvahs and averis. They put him into Olam Haba. Everyone's sitting and learning. He doesn't know what to do there. So he says, what are you doing here? He says, well, what do you want? He says, he wants that whip with the horse. They gave him a whip. He doesn't know. He's whipping the walls. He's whipping the this and that. And the Mashgiach comes out. He says, you can't really do that in Spanish. So he said that, they had to be mispal for him to get him out of there. He says, that there are shortcuts into Olam Haba. He said, but don't stand there with a whip. You got to be zoicha to something down here in this world. Balatanya says, you say Gemara, you try to learn even if you don't understand. You do your best to understand, but that's enough. But in Shemayim, you'll understand it. We got to do our efforts to reach it, so we should have something in Shemayim. So the smart son says, well, what's going to change now? And the woman doesn't need the chachma. The woman perceives it emotionally. And even when you're all alone, you're going to say, what's going to change now? Why is my life different? And your answer is, look, the Yidden were zeicha to a darga of cheres. If I can push myself to a certain level, I'll be zeicha to a darga that I never had. The Gemara says an interesting thing. Gemara says, Rav Nachman said, L'dari Avdei, to his Eved, to his slave Dari. He said, a master that frees his Eved. Yeah. Not only does he free him, he gives him gold and silver. He says, what would you say? I would say that master is great. He parted us from saying Manashtan. We don't have to say Manashtan. We don't have to say Manashtana. Manashtana is the question. If anything, we don't have to say the answer. What does the Gemara mean? It's very, very important to understand this. The Schachter talks about it a lot. And we face this yoyness down here in this world. You are driving, and you're behind a bus, and you're about a Lincoln Tunnel. 35-minute delay. And the back of this bus has a nasty picture on it. And you're right behind the bus. You could say, no choice. This is where I am, Or you could say, help me, try, Try. I'll do my best. I do my best. They say the Ramas is, you do your best. I'm going to try to do my best. You're depressed. You're smashed. You don't want to daven. You don't want to learn. You don't want to smile. I'll do my best. I'll try. I'll give it whatever I have. If you wouldn't have done this, you would have been terribly punished. If you would have looked, you know what the Einish is. That's what we're used to being taught. It's Einish for Averis. It says it's time for, but there's another whole side of it. It's that the Rebbeinu Shalom takes you up. After 120 years, the Rebbeinu Shalom says to these Malachim, hey, Malach! You said I shouldn't create man. This guy was in the Lincoln Tunnel 30 minutes in front of that picture and he figured out I'm not to look at it. What do you know about Taivas? This guy sat down by the Seder and said, Yamtiv, get Yamtiv, and the last thing in the world he wanted to do was smile. And he said, I gotta try, as much as I can, I gotta try. You know how much Rabbi Shem pays you? It isn't just schar ba'onish. It's not just, if I do the Aveira, I'm gonna be punished. Do you know what you get for not doing the Aveira? Do you know the reward that you get? So you want to know why I'm smiling tonight when I know I won't be able to keep smiling? Because I know how much God pays for that smile. Beyond imagination. I know I mention this every year, and I'll just do it real quickly. We had this meeting by our Seder, that before we get to the Vanitzak, that they yelled, they screamed. So everybody sitting around the table, we go to each of the kids, and we say, okay, who would you like to daven for? And every kid says, well, so-and-so that's not well, and so-and-so needs a shidduch, and so-and-so is depressed and needs to be happy, and so-and-so has shalom bayis problems. You'd be surprised what these kids know. And we go around the table. And I say, so what's his name? What's her name? What's his name? What's her name? And I said, now, so when the Yidden were crying in Mitzrayim, they weren't crying for their own pain. They were crying for everyone. Let's cry together for all these people. And we screamed, Nitzak, and everyone have in mind, you have in mind all the people we had in mind. And we try to keep cheshbon. And we go like from the Nitzak till all those couple of pieces. It's like the highlight. It became like the highlight of the Seder. And it's like the kids are already preparing who they're going to daven for, who we're going to scream. Vanitzak minhu avoida. Out of the avoida, they said, look, Rabbi Hashem, look who I am. And that's why it's so important. So important that we chop right. I want to conclude with a mashal I heard from Rabbi Meir. I've mentioned it previous occasions. He said that, there's a woman, she comes to America, and she can't believe it! She survived the concentration camp. Her husband is here in America. They looked at each other, they both faint. Both survived the simcha shein kamai. Each one thought the other was dead. They don't have a red cent to the name. It's the first Pesach together. And they rent a tiny little, hole in a basement. She doesn't have a matzah tash. She doesn't have, so she finds it. She begs some trimming store, to give her a small piece of material. They give her tiny shreds. She sews it and sews it and sews it, and makes a beautiful matzah tash out of it. A beautiful little thing for the matzah. And they sit down, they're crying over this matzah tash, crying over their families. Could it be, will we ever build up again? Will we ever have a life? I don't speak the language, I don't know the money. We've gone through so much. Yes, if Kadosh Baruch Hu made it that we found each other, life will go on. As the years went on, typical, he started being this and that. He worked with a peddler, there's a slum law, the big law, until he got to the office building in Manhattan. And now he has Seder, guests, and they have a big, silver, beautiful 10-story matzah thing, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, and on top you still have this little thing, they always put it on, it's a zeicha for what it was. And he's turned 60, 70, 80, and one day he's puffing a cigar, and he's going with his accountants, this building, that building, and collapses and passes away. And the almana is broken, smashed, hurt, her world caved in on her. Her husband, a couple like that appreciate each other's life. So at Pesach, it's first, she says she can't have all the kids coming. It's going to be too painful. So each kid says, Ma, come to me, come to me, come to me. So but she goes to one of the daughters, and she decides, and they're all so excited, their Bobby's coming, and she goes into a room, and she says she's going to give the daughter a gift. And she washed it and cleansed it and cleaned it and put it into a beautiful silver dish, gold dish, and it was that original matzah thing. She's going to give it over to her daughter so that her daughter can pass it on to the next generation. Explain, how did this generation survive? How did we rebuild? She's waiting for the right moment to give it to her daughter, the right moment, and she builds up the courage. She walks down at 3 a.m. in the morning, and her daughter's like finishing off the dishes. It's the night before the Dikas Chametz, and she says, I have a gift for you. Ma, you shouldn't have. And she takes out this matzah tash. She goes, oh, we have a silver one. We don't really need that one. And the mother, boom, runs up and slams the door, throws herself into the bed and begins to cry. And she runs up, Ma, what did I say? What did I do? Because if you don't understand it, I can't explain it to you. You understand. Why are we here today? Why are you sitting by a Seder? You know how many grandmothers and grandfathers you had that burnt in the Inquisition and went through? How many had the courage to go on with life when it looked like life was over, that you're here? And the Rabbi Hashem says, you're sitting by a Seder. I'm so bored with this every single year. Oh, man, you don't get it. Can you imagine the feeling of all these parents that are looking down at you and saying, you don't appreciate it? So whatever your life is at the given moment, even if it's a shredded piece of matzah tash, pick it up and say, Rabbi Shalom, this is who I am. And once we're willing to say, this is who I are, and trust me, it'll indeed be a Frei L'Chanyan.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Shut this thing off.